From the Denver Broncos Media Center, welcome to Broncos Country Tonight with Ryan Edwards and Benjamin Allbright.
All right, welcome to Broncos Country Tonight. We got a fun show for you this evening. Hall of Famer Steve Atwater in the house. What up, Steve?
What up, gents? It's good to see you.
Good to have you here, man. And we had Broncos OTAs. We had practices out there. Von Miller.
Practice?
Yeah, man.
Okay.
Did you enjoy that?
Practice? Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
Now, I couldn't see very much because, my vision has gotten a little worse over the years. And I got prescription glasses, but they still were a little bit too far away for me.
That's why I got you this watch, so you could actually see the time in full 3D.
It's a big watch.
Yeah, well, maybe after you walk across the stage, your Hall of Fame ceremony, they'll upgrade your vision. I don't know if that's a thing they do, but
put the jacket on, you get 20/20 vision. It's just part of the deal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I need to get that jacket.
Upgrade your Wi-Fi, too. It's free.
5G.
6G. Yeah, 6G. Not even invented yet. All right. I wanted to talk to you, because one of the things I loved, and we talked about it yesterday on the show, I loved watching Von Miller out there. And I know we talked about it last week.
Look good, too.
Oh, man, look great. And I know we talked about it last week about how much he means to the team, both offense and defense. But one of the things he said there at the end of his press conference when he was speaking with the media is that he thinks that this could be the resurrection of the no-fly zone.
Oh, man. Don't do that, Von.
I know. So it's not beyond Von Miller to say positive things, right? I mean, Von always says positive things about his team. But let's just for a moment live in the world. How do they get there?
Well, by starting off working together, the guys being here, putting in that time, getting to know where everyone else is on the field and how they're going to play the defenses. Because we know the talent is there. Both the corner, Ronald Darby, Kyle Fuller, then we got PS2, then Justin and Kareem. Come on, that's a superstar lineup right there. And I understand why Von is super excited about it. I don't want to put that pressure on him because I don't want anybody to get injured. I just want to play it safe right now in terms of the comments. But I'm just as fired up as Von is. I think that the potential is definitely there.
Yeah, I think that for Von, this is kind of a prove-it year. They picked up the option, and for him, in and of itself, there's kind of an attitude like, I got to reattack this. I got to reset myself as Von Miller because the last 2 years, he's last year injured. The year before that, only got the 6 sacks. I think he's got to reset himself as Von Miller, and I think that energy will be infectious in that room. Yeah,
and I also think, I know as a defensive back, when the edge guys and interior defensive linemen got pressure, they made our job a lot easier. With Von saying, hey, man, all right, my guys can cover back there. They can give us a little extra second to get to the quarterback, too. And it can work both ways. But I know he's happy to have guys who are going to be healthy and who can cover and they can play zone, do the whole 9 yards. Because that means everybody can have success on the defense if they go out and do their thing.
Okay, so let's talk about what makes for a good secondary, right? We're talking about chemistry on the field, communication, swagger. I mean, those are all things that I would say are identifiers, talent, of course, of the no-fly zone.
Turnovers.
Got to get turnovers. But you know what? I mean, this is what's been so weird about this defense is because Vic Fangio, when he took this job, he went from the Chicago Bears, who led the league in turnovers, to this team who's really struggled with that. Eventually, that's
coming.
That's what I'm saying. Eventually it's going to happen. You just sort of wonder what's missing. Now, maybe it has been injuries. You haven't had Von and Bradley on the field at the same time very much.
That definitely plays a part.
Yeah.
It's not like, you can take your superstars off the field and then, hey, these guys in here, they're going to do just as good. That doesn't happen. That's why there's a pay difference among the roster. Now, absolutely, some guys in their first 3-4 years of their contracts, they can't change that. But other guys who are free agents, hey, they're making a certain amount versus somebody's, $2 million versus $20 million. It's for a reason.
No question about that. So what do you think about that, Ben, about the chemistry part of that, or I guess the ingredients that make a good secondary?
Well, I mean, it starts with players. It starts with great players that are able to execute the vision of what the defensive coordinator and what they're trying to lay out. And Steve's right. When you lose starters, a lot of times you do lose productivity there. Now, we saw Malik Reed come in and have a little bit of production last year. He was kind of hit or miss. It came in bunches. But
some guys just needed that opportunity to show what they can do. But, for the most part, the guys who are starting because, hey, they're quite a bit better than the guys that are backing them up. Now, when you got a great team, then there's not as much drop-off in between the first and second team and third team. You got players who can come in and start at every position.
How often do you think that coaches and front offices make mistakes with who should be the starter? Do you think it's a rarity? I mean, like the idea that Tom Brady's backing up Drew Bledsoe, and that situation ended up rectifying itself after Bledsoe got hurt. But how often do you think coaches and front offices make mistakes with the players that they designate as starters versus the guys that aren't?
I think it's seldom, but it definitely happens, and the players know it. The players know they've been in practice. They've been watching film. They've been seeing this guy throw interceptions, but then he still gets another opportunity or, missing tackles. But, why is he still starting? He just missed 10 tackles last week, but if they don't have a space where they can go to the coach and say something to him, that, hey, coach, I understand this is your motto, but, hey, we got some guys back on the defensive side of the room that feel like we need to make a change because, we're starting to feel like you aren't playing the best guys. And if you're not playing the best guys, are we really trying to win? And we're putting in a lot of hard work. So
how often does that relationship exist, though? Like, did you feel comfortable going to your coaches and saying that?
Oh, yeah. But our coaches, they didn't have that. But they're going to play who can play.
Okay.
They weren't playing any buddy.
Well, I'd even say that the Broncos have historically done a pretty good job at that. I mean, look at all the hits they've had in free agents, college free agents, Chris Harris Jr.,
Absolutely.
C.J. Anderson, Shaq Barrett. I mean, they've had so many hits there, and it was those guys saw the field to the level they did, especially Chris Harris, a perfect example, being an undrafted guy, saw the field as much as he did as a result of just playing his way into it.
Oh, no, and that's why I say I think it seldom happens where they are playing the wrong guy. I think most of the time they do pick out the right guy. But, hey, it does happen from time to time. And it's frustrating as heck for everybody.
No doubt about it. But that's the thing about what I think makes the NFL so great is that you're always bringing in competition. There's always that. I do want to ask you, and maybe we'll do this on the other side, I want to ask you about depth because you were just talking about the differences between starters and depth. And that's one thing that has come back a few times as people worry about this team and the depth. And maybe that's just because of what happened last year, but maybe that is a little bit of a tie to this year. So when we come back, Steve Atwater will join us. That's next on Broncos Country Tonight.
Welcome back to Broncos Country Tonight. Here are Ryan Edwards and Benjamin Allbright.
All right, welcome back to Broncos Country Tonight. Steve Atwater remaining in studio with us.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Steve, we were having a conversation about depth, and you were talking about the difference between starters and depth. And we can have this real conversation about the secondary and all the additions they made to that. But, we just got done talking about pass rushers. If you lose Von Miller or Bradley Chubb for any length of time, Malik Reed's good, but he's not necessarily a starter level. Inside linebacker is another position where you got a little lucky last year. Safety, you did draft some guys. But as far as the depth overall, what do you think about this team's depth?
Well, I think it's really good in some positions, and it can certainly be better in others. We had a lot of injuries last year, and hopefully that won't come – hopefully most of those guys will be back healthy this year. But it just depends on the position. Like I said, the inside linebacker position, it may be much deeper now, just depending on how Justice Trenard does, how Baron Browning does. But last year we were definitely thin at the inside linebacker position, though. Cornerback position, I thought we were pretty deep last year, but we had so many injuries at that position that we got down to guys who, really hadn't played very much. But I thought they still did a really good job, considering all the injuries. We do have depth, but like I said, some positions are better than others.
It's interesting as you're talking about that because we can say wide receiver, cornerback are probably the two deepest groups, but offensive line's always the one for the Broncos, it seems like, that we come back to. How do you feel about the depth of the offensive line, especially in light of having to bring in new right tackles there?
I think it's actually pretty stout. I mean, you look at what we've got here. We've got Garrett Bowles, who's been a stalwart over on the left side. The only game he missed was one he wanted to play in anyway with their Pizza and Wings gate down there in Carolina. I got a little sick to his stomach.
I love to hear people talk about Garrett Bowles now, man. They talk about him like he's a superstar, man. And I was the one pounding the table for him, telling you guys he was going to do this.
I said they needed to re-sign him before he took off over those last 6 games. Nobody listened to me either.
I was loving his story about how he's messing around with Mike Munchak.
Yeah.
Can you imagine, even just a year ago, where if you would have said, I was messing around with Munchak, he'd be like, Get to work, man. Come on now. You got a lot to prove out there.
Garrett's slacking off. The media hot take guy would have been all over that. But no, I think the talent level is a lot better than it has been. We saw Calvin Anderson fill in admirably when Garrett was out during that game. Garrett's been stalwart. He's been available for almost every game. And then you look at the right side. You've got Bobby Massey. You've got Fleming. Both those guys, I think, Calvin can go both ways. So I feel like that there's enough depth there. And then the interior, you got plenty of depth. You got your starters. You got your 3 starters right now in Reisner, Cushenberry, and Glasgow. You got Natani Moody. You got Quinn Meinerz. I mean, they've got plenty. And I'm not even talking about Schlotman, a guy who played admirably at guard, filling in when he had to last year. So there are plenty of bodies there. I think the offensive line, if they don't, fingers crossed, they don't get snake bit with injury. But I think right now it looks like it could be a strength and not a liability.
Yeah, and last year Glasgow, I don't think he played as well as he could play. I think his game is going to be much better this year. Lloyd Cushenberry definitely didn't play as well as he can play, but I always say this, man. Rookie offensive linemen, I think it is important that they come in and get that time, that experience in, and then at the end of the season, they're gonna go back like, man, I got to get on these weights. I got to get stronger because it's a whole different level of strength of these defensive linemen in the NFL. So I think he's gonna make a big jump this year. He's gonna be solid for us in that interior offensive line.
Well, right. I mean, it's a whole different ballgame when you're Lloyd Cushenberry going up against the biggest lawyer in Vanderbilt. The guy's going to be a lawyer someday. And versus when you come in and Grady Jarrett's, one-handing you back into the quarterback's lap. I mean, it's a whole different world in the NFL.
Yeah, but I mean, Quinn Meinerz is going to find that out as well. You think D3 school, we talked about it all the time. Like, hey, man, those are like 190-pound defensive linemen. Come on now.
Yeah, but he's a big, strong guy, and that's what he should have been doing to those guys.
That's right.
And he held his own at the Senior Bowl, and now he's got to prove that he can hold his own at this level. And I think he's in a great situation where he doesn't have to come in and start immediately, but he'll be able to compete. And he's got one of the greatest offensive line coaches in Mike Munchak and Chris Cooper, two of the greatest offensive line coaches that he could have. So he's in a great situation.
The Broncos are pretty set at most starting spots. Is there any other place on the offensive side of the ball that you are worried about the depth? I'd say tight end is a little bit of a worry.
We were so stacked at tight end going into last year. And when Albert O got injured and then Jake Butt's no longer with us, Jake Butt balled out last training camp too, man. We have a ton of talent at that position, but we're coming off some injuries with Austin Ford. So I still think we got a lot of talent there. If guys can get healthy by the third, fourth game of the season, be ready to go. Everybody can be ready to go.
It's just one of those positions that if something were to happen, and again, you can't plan for every eventuality, and that's one of the conversations about depth anyways. But Noah Fant, Albert Okwuegbunam are no question the top two guys.
Noah Fant is going to have a beastly year this year.
Oh, yeah. But Albert O coming off of injury, Noah Fant has played 2 years being a little bit banged up at times. That's the one position we may get to midseason saying, man, could have been. But it wasn't a great draft for tight ends.
How many tight ends can you have on your roster? I mean, come on.
Well, if you're asking the New England Patriots,
especially when you run 11 personnel as your base offense, like how many tight ends are you going to load up with?
I mean, how many are you going to have? What do you think? I think, three or four?
Right, with 2 and an H-back?
4 tops.
Yep. Well, and so it's just the one position. So I guess what we ultimately can come back to is the Broncos have done a pretty good job giving themselves options at depth. And that's something that George Paton said he wanted to do. Said when he got here, that was a big point of emphasis, is getting competition in and giving themselves depth.
No, I like that. And, most of the positions are like that. You only have a few positions where, it's kind of etched in stone. Hey, Von Miller, Bradley Chubb, they're starting Malik Reed. He's going to get a lot of run there. The interior defensive line, that's going to be fun. But I still think Shelby Harris, Mike Purcell, and Draymond Jones. Hey, unless somebody can come in and beat them out, they're going to have a hard time starting. But most of the time, interior defensive line, they rotate a lot anyway.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Steve, thank you for joining us in studio.
Is it over?
I mean, you have Hall of Fame things to do. So.
I'm staying, man. I'm staying.
All right.
Can I stay?
Chris Daughtry would say it's not over.
Can I stay?
Steve's going to stay for one more segment. We're talking about Drew Lock when we come back and how the coaches are getting used to him just as much as he's getting used to them. We'll get to it next.
Welcome back to Broncos Country Tonight here are Ryan Edwards and Benjamin Allbright.
All right, welcome back to Broncos Country Tonight. Steve Atwater, kind enough to stay in studio with us for one more segment. Steve, we appreciate that.
Oh, man, you guys begged me, so, you know.
Oh, man.
Nah, I'm just kidding.
Way
I'm happy to be here.
Sell me out, man.
No, I'm just kidding.
Come on, Steve, please.
No, I wanted to be here, man.
All right,
Thank
well,
you.
I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
One of the things I wanted to talk about, I thought this was a really interesting quote from Drew Lock. He was sort of talking about what he's been working on in the offseason, going back and look at those final games specifically. And he mentioned how Pat Shurmur, Mike Shula, the offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach, how they were getting used to him just like he is being used to them. And I feel like we spend a lot of time talking about how Drew Lock can acclimate and learn the playbook and get his footwork right. We don't spend a lot of time talking about the other side of this equation where the coaches are getting used to the things that he does well.
With them actually putting him in situations to learn and see with their eyes and evaluate with their minds what he can do, I think is much better. And they like Drew Lock said, they have a much better idea of what he can do and some things that he may not do as well. But the question is, do you work on the things that you don't do well, or do you highlight the things that you do well?
Well, Ben,
I think you take away the things you don't do well. I think you try to find ways to eliminate the things you don't do well.
It takes out the playbook.
Well, I mean, you got to find a way to start. You got to find some baseline to work with. If he's not executing something well, you either need to eliminate it from your repertoire, or you need to go out there and practice it till he gets it right. One of the two. Mm-hmm. And I think our base install needs to be things he does well, and then we'll start to worry about the things he doesn't and practice those and try to get him up to par. That would be my approach.
Yeah.
It's an interesting point you bring up there, that are you working with him on those things? Are you developing those things, improving those things? And just like you know what he does well, you know what he struggles with. Yeah. But the fact is, like, you still got to be able to run your system. So I think that there is an interesting balance there. And I think for Drew being able to be on the other side of this and have that continuity, like we said that all offseason last year, as soon as they made the move, we're like, man, this is a mess. This is a mess for the continuity portion.
Man, yeah, don't change it up, man. That makes it difficult on pretty much everybody on the offensive side of the ball, because the coaches got to come in. They got to learn new players. The players got to learn the coaches and their, the way they communicate. Because our coaches don't communicate the same. It's just a lot of different ways, and it takes a while to get on the same page. So I'm glad we got the second year coming up with the same offense, and hopefully there's many more years to come.
But that's the thing about this, is we can have all these conversations, and as Drews was sort of talking about these things yesterday, I was thinking about it as, okay, well, these are things to build on. Like if he was starting over with another offensive coordinator, or if they were starting over with another quarterback, and again, that's still a possibility, but let's just say that we stay in this pattern where it's Drew Lock, Teddy Bridgewater competing with these coaches, at least for this year. You have things to build off of. You have the conversations of, hey, remember last year when we tried this, it didn't work out. I liked a point Drew made too. He said, there were times I didn't like things they were doing last year, or we didn't practice them very much. But then as time went on and I got better and more comfortable with it, I actually loved the play calls. Right. And again, those are things you can all build off of.
Well, yeah, and that's where you need to get to the point where everybody's got that comfort level with everything. But how do you do that? Reps, right? I mean, so you got to find ways to practice those things. You got to find ways to build off that. The quicker you get the base install, quicker you get the base stuff down, you can start to work on some of those other things that, maybe you're not good at or you don't understand right away philosophically. And I think hopefully having a year's experience with the basic concepts of this offense, maybe they can get to some of that stuff this year and really open things up.
How much does that factor in, by the way, the coach's belief that the quarterback is picking up the playbook or feeling comfortable with it?
That's huge. That's huge. And what it does is it builds that relationship between the coach and the player, the coach and the quarterback, to where, if the coach sees that the player is putting in the time and is grasping onto it, hey, the coach will start to respect the player's opinion, to where if the player comes out and says, Coach, I don't think we should run that right now. It's a good chance the coach says, all right, let's scrap it. Let's go with something else. But if they haven't built that bond, if they haven't gone through enough instances where the coach has seen how he's responded to it, he's not going to listen to what the player has to say, because you don't have enough experience. You maybe you could do it if you put the effort into it.
Do you think this gives Drew Lock a bit of the inside track to the job as a result of this experience with his coaching staff?
I mean, he may be a little bit ahead of Teddy Bridgewater in that regard, because he's had that year with these specific coaches in this specific offense. But Teddy has had success in some offenses, and he's gone into situations where, like last year, he was there for 1 year and won the starting job. And I don't think they had too much competition up there for him. But so he's definitely not an underdog here. But I think Drew Lock does have a little bit of an advantage having been in the system for a year.
Ben?
Yeah, I mean, P.J. Walker and Will Greer weren't exactly like the world on fire.
Right.
I like P.J., but and he came in and started okay for him. But Teddy was clearly the better quarterback there. I think that it comes down to, we've talked about this training camp battle coming up for the Broncos, and it really comes down to Drew Lock's ability to showcase that he has better tools versus his ability to limit mistakes. And, if he can't do, especially the latter.
Say what now? Say that again.
The fact that Drew has better tools, he has a stronger arm, than Teddy. Versus his own ability to limit mistakes. He was one of the most turnover-prone quarterbacks in the NFL last year. So if he can't eliminate that from the repertoire, then Teddy's going to take the job from him by virtue of being safer.
Yeah. That's one thing Drew, I think, has to do. He has to limit those mistakes, throwing in the double and triple coverage and, making the same mistakes later on that he makes earlier. You got to take those, watch that film, break it down, and I'm not doing that anymore. And when the coaches see that come up, as the season goes on, and they see that he's not making those same mistakes, that'll increase their confidence in him as well.
Really well said. Steve, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Ryan.
All right. For Benjamin Allbright,
Thank you, Ben.
I'm Ryan Edwards. Thanks for watching Broncos Country Tonight.
Thanks for watching Broncos Country Tonight. Tune in to Broncos TV every weeknight at 6:30, right here on KTVD Channel 20.